Hey, Green Living Guy here at Sundance, heading here for Sunday night, last night of the event for us, and we're just doing our thing. Gonna head over to the Green Lounge, give some guitar party, and see what else happens tonight. All savings, development. Yeah, I mean, well, development in the sense of sustainable. And I think that's the trick. So, just keep it. So I'm going to start off and then we'll go from there. Green Living Guy here. And I am hanging out at Bing, and I just met these great people, and I was doing an interview soon with Michael Nash for Climate Refugees movement, and I just met these great people, and I guess some people are definitely going to know who they are, and other people will not, and it'll be an awesome experience to meet them. So let's just start with this lovely woman here. Hi, your name is?
My name is Coco Warner. I work at the United Nations University.
Okay.
And I'm from the US, but I'm based in Bonn, Germany.
Bonn, Germany, okay.
And my job at the United Nations University is to study and tell policymakers about the impacts of climate change on migration and displacement of people.
That's great. I mean, that's very poignant. And Mike, like I said, both of you had interviewed here too. So on the movie, correct? Right. Your name is?
Les Brown with the Earth Policy Institute in Washington, D.C., doing research on global environmental issues, energy, environment, food, population, water, climate change.
And I guess to get people an idea of things.
Someone said the bathroom was up there. Oh well.
Some guy just came in checking out for the bathroom in the middle of our podcast. Well, hey, that's live. We're going live. So, what do you think about climate change? What do you think about? I guess the infamous question is: the weather seems to be getting a little bit interesting lately, hasn't it? And what are your thoughts about that? Take it one at a time.
Well, what we're discovering as a number of scientists working on the climate issue keeps increasing and looking at more and more dimensions of climate change is that the Earth's climate is changing. The Earth is getting warmer. The ice is melting, and with all sorts of consequences. I mean, one of the things we talk about in the film is the melting of the Greenland ice sheet and its effect on the rice harvest of Asia. Now, that's not an obvious link to the person on the street, but the Greenland ice sheet contains an enormous amount of water. If it melts entirely, sea level rises 23 feet. And it would only have to, part of it melt. If we had a 3-foot rise in sea level, it would put half the rice land in Bangladesh underwater and a large part of the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. So we're looking at the potential massive displacement of people just from ice melting. And I don't think we've really yet grasped the meaning of climate change. And what the film does that Coco and I have both been part of is to give climate change a human face. It looks at people being affected by climate change in many parts of the world.
And it does. I mean, a lot of people, I guess, might not be here because the issues going on with Haiti right now. And there's people doing fundraisers or going there or doing whatever they can. So, I mean, it's a wake-up call, but it's unfortunate that it's a wake-up call, but it's still not a wake-up call. I mean, I just recently had somebody before I came here saying to me, well, what are these sunbursts, or are these things that are, just like things that we have absolutely zero control on? That's what a lot of people think that I've ran into, and even coming here, we ran into people saying that. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that big issue that I think will help people wrap their heads around it somewhat still.
There's still segments of the Flat Earth Society around. People who are not convinced by the science that the Earth is actually round, they're convinced it's flat. There are websites devoted entirely to this. And so some people aren't likely to be convinced. There are many people in the world who don't think we've been to the moon, for example, particularly in the Muslim world, because as you know, the crescent is an important symbol, and it's on so many of the flags in Muslim countries, so they can't accept the fact that people have actually been to the moon and come back. We take cigarette smoking. I mean, it took a long time. The first Surgeon General's report on smoking and health was issued in 1964. But it wasn't until after 1970 that we really saw a very rapid decline in smoking in the U.S. And the rest is history. I mean, the number of smokers in this country, the share of the population smoking has been cut in half, and it's continuing to go down. So more and more people are convinced of that. Not everyone yet. So it's partly an educational thing, and things that involve ideology or religion, sometimes no amount of education is sufficient to change thinking.
That is, I was just recently having a discussion yesterday with somebody, just saying how one of the biggest things I'm looking to do as my resolution for 2010 is just to educate people about what they can do, the small little things or the large things they can do depending on what they want to do. And it's just mesmerizing. And I guess it was that, once again, like the epiphany. Everybody has their epiphany or something like that. And I wrapped my head around, well, my wife was a teacher. My dad was a teacher and a superintendent. My sister-in-law was a teacher. My mother-in-law was a teacher. My mom was a teacher. Getting the point. Anyway, so that's why I think it's so poignant that you say education. And I think this movie, yes, might be an amazing success in the box office for what it's going to do, but also it's much more of a real educational piece and going to get people, I think, waking up, because I mean, just seeing the trailer made me realize, and that's going to be this part of the story I write on this, is that an inconvenient truth gave you an idea, but you ain't seen nothing yet.
You can't imagine how inconvenient.
Yeah, that's why I came here. It was just to hear and to start really talking about this seriously.
The reason Coco is in the film, apart from the fact she's very articulate, is because she researches climate refugees, environmental refugees more broadly, but climate refugees particularly. And what she's finding, and what we're beginning to see now, is people being displaced in many parts of the world already. But the big displacements lie ahead. And our concern with the massive movement of millions and millions of people across, many of them across national borders, who are displaced by climate change, is that it could create a lot of political instability in the world. Here in the United States with Katrina, there were initially roughly 1 million evacuees from New Orleans and from the Gulf Coast towns who moved north in Louisiana and Arkansas, Texas, and nearby states. Of those, 300,000 have never gone back. They are no longer evacuees, they're now refugees. They are our first large group of climate refugees, but they are not likely to be the last. I saw another interesting indicator recently that the population of Florida last year declined by 30,000, probably for the first time that we've been tracking this over a half century, that Florida's population is actually shrinking. Shrinking.
What? Because people are concerned about...
My sense is, and the source of the numbers didn't give the reasons, but my sense is that people get tired of rebuilding after a while, number one. Number two, if they want to insure a new home, it's very difficult to get insurance, becoming much more costly. Some businesses that insure their buildings and business properties are finding the insurance rates becoming just too high, so they're moving out. And there's also the growing concern about rising sea level. Florida is not far above sea level, and even a 1 foot rise would begin to change the geography of Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I know my dad is trying to get a place down there, and I'm a little concerned, but he's been saying the insurance is insane, and these people have boarded up houses and whatever, it's a foreclosure capital because people don't want to be down there either, or they couldn't afford it, and then or whatever the issue was, and then you have the fact that you're right there.
I think the other thing is that the latest projections now indicate that we could be looking at a 6-foot rise in sea level during this century. And so if you're living in a low-lying area, whether it's in Tuvalu or the Delta in Bangladesh where tens of millions of people live, or in Florida or New Orleans or the Gulf Coast, whatever, very close to sea level, those numbers begin to affect your thinking. What we could be looking at one of these days in this country is 2 real estate markets, one where prices are dropping, the low-lying coastal areas, and the rest of the country where they're rising in response to the growing demand as people leave the low-lying coastal regions.
Just to circle back to something that Lester mentioned earlier, a little bit of sea level rise. People think, oh, it's no big deal. What's a 1-inch change in sea level rise? It makes no difference. But there are a couple of things. You have sea level rise and you have wave action. Any change in sea level rise brings waves in ocean water, or whatever water, farther inland. It accelerates coastal erosion, which is already a problem all over the world. A 1-meter sea level rise is not an issue for out there. Most of the U.S.'s major cities are directly at sea level. All of the eastern seaboard, Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, just go around Miami,
New Yorker.
all the way around. Our big cities are really exposed. We need to take a look at that. People could really find it increasingly difficult for a variety of reasons, not just climate change. Climate is complex, but climate change is increasing the pressure on systems that are already really under stress. I think something that we've been kind of trying to get our heads around is how do we bring the science and the knowledge that we have in certain communities to the public so that the public can make informed decisions. And there's a big debate. I think it's really relevant that people are asking questions. Is climate change real? Are we causing it? Do we really need to do anything about it? Those are very valid questions. But sometimes I feel concerned that there are certain interests that make a big debate and say, no, the science is bad, so either we don't do anything or we need many more years of science. We're not in that time anymore. That's not the luxury we have now. Now we need action and an ongoing quest for better understanding at the same time. We cannot afford not to address the impacts of climate change.
I guess one question that I had the minute I saw the trailer, as well as that picture, was a painting kind of picture that Michael had for his promotion for it, and it
The
said New
human
York.
face.
Yeah, New York. And I was like, I live Briarcliff Meadow, which is right up near the Hudson. What should people be aware of in places that they wouldn't be expecting? There is a problem.
Something that Michael Nash brings up in his film Climate Refugees is that climate change is a human thing. It's not just about the numbers and science and this and that. Those are things that the person on the street might not be so concerned about. We're trying to get through the day. We're trying to make sure we keep a job or get a job. It's really tough times. I think the first step is awareness, and Michael's film is effective in raising awareness that climate change is an issue. It affects us today, and it, as Lester pointed out, has potential to change civilization almost to the point that we don't recognize it anymore. It doesn't have to be that way. That's the second thing. We need to act, and one of the things that we can do, we can of course look at our own behavior at home and figure out, maybe it's small things, turning off the water, this and that, maybe being more efficient with our energy or using different energy sources. But we need to tell our political leaders what we think. We really have to do it. We heard Barbara Boxer today, Senator Boxer from California, again and again. I think I counted the times, 5 times at least, that she asked people, write to your senators. And if the senator tells you that, it's an indication that they must listen. So we need to do that.
Yeah, I one of my past lives, I was blessed to work for as an intern for Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan.